I thought China had a aging population problem. It's true. I do see babies everywhere, but I pretty much live right across the street from a children's hospital. I read something this week that is going viral all over China. The government has ordered the closure of all for-profit tutoring schools, cram schools, after school, weekends. The thinking is basically this: if parents don't have to pay so much for tutoring services in cram schools, they will feel better about being able to afford to have more children. And that's what I want to talk about today. It just seems to me that this policy, as well-intentioned as it may be, doesn't seem like it's going to work. One thing's for sure: parents are never going to stop sending their children to study somehow, some way, to improve the quality of their life. It's like, okay, they're going to close down a lot of the after-school tutoring companies, but the parents, they still want their children to have a competitive advantage. Let me tell you a few stories that I think can illustrate the situation here. I knew a student, she was a high school student, and she told me this story about in her high school, her mother told her, "You must sit in the front row, and here, I've got this gift card, give it to the teacher." The idea, of course, is to get favoritism, to get the best treatment, but also, just to have the most personal attention. And my student, her name was Allison, she told me it was so stupid because everybody in the school gave the teacher a gift. And you can't give personal attention to all of them. If you're not familiar with Chinese classrooms, they can be huge, 50 or 60 students. Therefore, teacher-centered classrooms are the norm. The teacher, as respected authority figure, stands at the head of the classroom and talks for the entire class. When I was learning ESL, English as a Second Language, we really emphasized CLT, communicative language teaching. And the main idea is to have more interaction with meaning involved. You would set up a lesson so that you are forcing or encouraging the students to use the target language that you're teaching that week. The important thing, though, is to have small groups, maybe pairs, and a lot of communicative small projects, problem solving. However, it doesn't really take into account a classroom with 50 or 60 students. I had one student of mine when I was teaching adults. She teaches at an elementary school in Fujian province, and she really wanted to learn the CLT, communicative language teaching, and she did. The problem was that nobody in her school district wanted it. The parents then got in, an uproar when the idea of CLT was being proposed, even for English classes where it could really benefit them in communication and knowing how to use the language, to speak the language, to listen to the language, rather than just, how to pass a test, know grammar, how to read a little and write a little. But the standardized tests are all about those last factors: how to write a little, how to read a little, and grammar. So no parent wants valuable class time diverted for this CLT nonsense in their eyes. Which leads us back to the original topic. which is the banishment, the stopping of these tutoring schools. Parents, they're gonna send their kids to tutoring. The problem now is that parents all over China are scrambling to find personal tutors as opposed to these institutions that are being closed down. And the price of a good tutor is, prohibitive for anybody but an affluent family. Therefore, this solution could just lead to a wider gap between the haves and the have-nots, which is definitely not what the government is looking to do. This is not the first time that the Chinese government has done its part to try to reduce the burden on students. A couple years ago in Zhejiang province, that's a coastal province near Shanghai, they created this new rule that school children didn't have to finish their homework if they didn't finish it before a certain time in the evening. And so for primary school students, if they did not finish their homework by 9 p.m., they didn't have to finish it. They can have their parents write a note and say, my child couldn't finish his homework on time, and the teacher has to respect that and not give him any demerits or mark him down or anything like that. Similarly, for junior high school students, if you didn't finish your homework by 10 o'clock, the teacher could not mark you down. I used to tell my students about this, have a small group discussion as a warm-up to some classes. What do they think of this policy? Is it a good policy? And most of the students just laughed at the policy. They said it would never work. The priorities are all wrong. Okay, you want to reduce the burden for children, but that goes against the priorities of the parents and the teachers who want their child to get the highest marks, to get the highest score on the entrance exam, to get the highest grades, and to get into the best school. So it goes against all the motivations. I didn't make the connection then to the two-child policy, now the three-child policy, but perhaps that was the real motivation for that policy in Hangzhou and Zhejiang. While I don't know if the Zhejiang homework policy had anything to do with encouraging parents to have more babies, I do know that that's the case with this new policy about shutting down the tutoring schools, shutting down the cram schools. It's because it's their stated objective. I've read that in a number of news reports. Everything that can reduce the burden, reduce the cost, will encourage Chinese parents to have more babies. But I go back to my original premise. I can't see parents making a decision on whether to have another child on somehow reducing the burden on homework, on cost of cram schools, when in fact, most people believe it'll increase the cost of tutoring. And if that's the case, real or not, that perception will not sway a parent to have another child, right? One more thing, we're talking about for-profit tutoring schools, offering subjects that are the same as the core subjects that they have in school. So if you want to turn your kid into a mahjong champion, into a dance champion, into a coding champion, feel free. All right, I'm going to wrap up this video. I want to thank you for watching. And if you did think it was interesting, if you could please share it with your friends or others, I'd appreciate it. And if you haven't, subscribe. Thanks. Maybe I shouldn't stay too close to her.